Hello, this is Edith Newmeyer, and I'm making a video again. I was gone for the past 3 weeks, 4 weeks, and so I didn't have time. I think I made one video while I was on vacation, so I didn't do very many videos. So these things that I wanted to discuss or talk about on my videos kind of stacked up. The themes that I wanted to address just kind of stacked up. So I'm going to do one more video on dispensationalism and coming out of dispensationalism. I have watched in the past a guy called Rick Wiles, and he is doing True News. I believe that's what his Facebook page is, True News. Let me look it up. Okay, and that's what it is. And he has some really interesting information. I really like it. He harps too much on Israel and the bad things Israel are doing. And I'm not saying they're not doing bad things, but he is a very, very anti-Zionist, person. I am anti-Zionist too, but I am not just using all my energy to defeat Zionists. But this Rick Wiles, even though he has at times good information, he started to proclaim that he is coming out of dispensationalism. And I listened to his testimony about that, and I noticed that he's going now to the other extreme. For some reason, he got into some teachers that are teaching him now the other extreme. I'm not sure. The guy has, like I said, he is he has a news station on which they do lots of great, they have great information, and he definitely is gifted in bringing up these true news informations. But I think when it comes to, again, Bible prophecy, he is not quite there. Even though now he's saying he's coming out of dispensationalism. The problem with people that come out of dispensationalism, and I have said that before in one of my videos, people seem to be very happy and excited about realizing that dispensationalism is wrong. And if you don't know what dispensationalism is, then please do some studies. I have done quite a lot of videos about dispensationalism, and get some information because I don't want to go into detail with this video. Just basically, dispensationalism has been taught in most churches about the end times. And it also, and it's been taught by Scofield. And maybe most people know Scofield. If you're familiar with Scofield, you have used Scofield in your church, then you have been exposed to dispensationalism, which is an absolutely wrong doctrine. The problem with dispensationalism are numerous. One of them, which this Rick Wiles addresses, is Zionism. This dispensationalism has supported, especially through Scofield, has supported Israel unconditionally. And so therefore we have what we call Christian, out of that came Christian Zionism. This believes, or even goes to the point where it tries to prove it through the Bible, that the promised land, or the Holy Land, actually the Holy Land belongs to the Jews, because you know what? It really belongs to the Hebrews, but the Hebrews are gone. 10 tribes of the Hebrews are gone. So only the Jews are left. So what they're saying is, the Zionist Christians say that, well, it belongs to the Jews, the Holy Land, okay? But that is not really what the Bible says at all, okay? But they ignore the verses that specifically say and state that the promised land was given to the 12 tribes under a condition, okay? They had a covenant with God. There was conditions attached to them owning the promised land from God, okay? When they were not fulfilling their part of the deal, they were kicked out. And God told Moses that just before they entered the promised land. He told Moses to tell the children, if they're not following God's commandments, he will kick them out. And that is exactly what God did. The 10 tribes of Israel, they were kicked out a long time ago, before the Jews even went into Babylonian captivity. And they never returned. God didn't change his mind. Now, the Jews came back. Judah came back. However, they only came back for a purpose, and they only had 70 years left. Okay? 70 years. And that 70 years ended with Messiah. God knew that they would reject Messiah, and that was the time he gave them, 70 years. Now, dispensationalism says, well, the last week of the 70 weeks is not fulfilled. It will be fulfilled at the end, and they turn that into a tribulation time. That is false. Okay, it's very false. But people, it is in the mind of most Christians, because most pastors have taught that. They have taught the 7-year tribulation time at the end. Why? Because they totally misinterpret the 70th week of Daniel, which is already fulfilled. Okay? So that is not happening. And when people come out of dispensationalism, they understand that. They understand that there is no gap in those 70 years, or at this end, that there's only, that there's 1 week left. And that this 1 week now, they turned into this 7-year tribulation. When we study this 7-year tribulation, it doesn't even exist. Tribulation, great tribulation exists and is mentioned, but it's only mentioned because all saints go through tribulation and great tribulation. All of them. The whole time of the Gentiles, which ends with Matthew 24:29, okay, or Luke 21:24. The times of the Gentiles. That's where, in that period, is where the saints have great tribulation. From the beginning, okay, they always use Matthew 24 to show that this is the great tribulation. No, Matthew 24, the first part of Matthew 24, is about the abomination of desolation and the destruction of the temple. See, people also, dispensationalists also lie about the abomination of desolation. Okay? And who causes this abomination of desolation? The people of the prince destroyed the temple and caused the abomination of desolation. The people of the prince to come. The prince is the man of lawlessness that comes years after the destruction of the temple. But not at the end. But see, in dispensationalism, this man of lawlessness comes on the scene during this fake tribulation period. 7-year fake tribulation period, which is false. Okay, that is false. So this dispensationalism brings up much disinformation and lies. They also say that during the 7 years, of course, of tribulation, the Jews again, okay, have more time. No, the 70 years is over. Okay, 70 years is over. And I have shown that. I'm not going to go into detail. I've shown that over and over and over and over. Okay, it is very simple. If you really read Daniel, it's Daniel 9, I think 26 and 27. If you really read it and use your English, okay, your English grammar, because you have to use English grammar and not what people told you. Because the problem is that when we are told something over and over and over and over, we believe it. I see it so many times when I talk to these people on Facebook. They tell me something, they can never show where it is. Like, oh, the Antichrist is going to put himself in the temple. Where in the world does it say that? No place. No place. See, this is this abomination of desolation, which was the destruction of the temple, that now dispensationalists are using and are saying, oh, during the 7-year tribulation is when the Antichrist, okay, the name Antichrist Paul didn't use and John didn't use in Revelation either, and Daniel didn't use. So how did people come up with this Antichrist thing? That's another false teaching, very false teaching. Okay, Antichrist, we only hear in 1st and 2nd John. And that is only the person or any person that does not believe that Jesus came in the flesh is an Antichrist, period. Okay, period. So people just used that word and ran with it, especially Schofield. And people hear it over and over and over and over. They hear it over and they never stop and really look it up and find out for themselves what this word Antichrist really means. They don't know it. Okay? Look up 1st and 2nd John, 1st John 2, and read the definition of Antichrist. It is not the man of lawlessness. It is not the beast of Revelation 13, and it is not the lawless one in Daniel 11. Okay? No. Okay? That's not it. And it shouldn't really be used. That word should not be used unless we define it correctly according to John. Okay? So this is all false teaching of dispensationalism. So now when people come out of dispensationalism, they are absolutely confused. Okay? Because they have no more solid foundation. Their foundation has been ripped away, and they stand in front of the door of dispensationalism, and they are, you can say, almost naked, because they don't know. They have no orientation. And instead of going to the Bible and really saying, well, this time I'm not going to listen to anybody, and I'm going to only read what the Bible says, they're again running to false teachers that are already waiting at the door. I know I have made a video about that, but I just want to be again talking about this subject because I saw it from this guy, Rick Wiles, okay? And many others. Many others. Is so typical for people that say, yes, I left dispensationalism, but they run after false teachers again. And I think the major point when they leave is that they still hold on to certain things. Like, for instance, people still hold on to the tribulation and just say, oh, no, it's not 7-year tribulation, it's 3.5. I have no idea where people come up with this tribulation period at the end. I don't know. I have asked people, and every time they quote something, it is only about a time frame, never in connection to, tribulation or great tribulation. Never. I have done an extensive study. Like I said, I have done an extensive study on the subject of tribulation. And I have never seen where this concept of great tribulation is at the end. Okay? I see that all saints go through tribulation. All saints, from the beginning, from the first disciples to the last believer that believes in Jesus Christ before the rapture. They all go through tribulation. Now, all may not be killed, okay? But they go through tribulation. Tribulation just means hardship. It doesn't mean you're going to be killed. But I'll tell you, most saints or many saints were killed. We go daily through tribulation, and that's what I see. When I find that word tribulation, it always talks about hardship. It doesn't talk about the name of a time period. Never, ever. And there is never, ever a time attached to it, like years attached to it. These people that say it's 3.5 years, they find 3.5 years someplace, or 126 days, and 1,260 days. But these don't relate, they're never in connection with great tribulation. So really they're saying they're coming out of dispensationalism, and they're saying, no, we don't believe that there's a gap in the 70 years. So they believe that the 70 years are fulfilled. So they believe that, right? But then they turn around and say, oh, but there's still this tribulation at the end, but it's not 7 years, it's not 1 week, but it's only 3.5. Well, that does not make sense to me. Unless you can show me and prove to me that there is a connection between the 3.5 years and the tribulation, you cannot make that claim. And like I told you, I have never, ever found it. Never. Okay? But that's not the only thing that they go in air. They just do not, many just don't drop everything. Well, there's some that drop everything and then they just go to the deep end. Like, for instance, they say, that's another thing that a lot of people say, that the rapture happens now at the end. Okay? They don't make a distinction now between the rapture. See, the people that believe in dispensationalism, they say that the rapture will happen before the tribulation. Okay? That's the original. And then people realize, wait a minute, it could be in the middle of the tribulation or at the end of the tribulation. Okay? The problem is that these people mix up tribulation with wrath of God. Clearly, the Bible uses the word wrath of God. You read Revelation. Revelation never refers to the 7 trumpets or the 7 bowls as tribulation or great tribulation. It's always referred to as the wrath of God. You go in the Old Testament and it's always referred to as the wrath of God. Never tribulation. Okay? Never. Once the day of the Lord starts, and that's the Old Testament people, like Joel and Isaiah, when they talk about the day of the Lord, the horrible day of the Lord, when the sun goes dark, and they talk about the horrible day of the Lord coming, they talk about the wrath of God. They saw the wrath of God, okay? Not tribulation. Yes, there will be believers during the wrath of God, but they are not the church. They're not the bride of Christ. Okay? There's a difference. There are going to be believers, but it's not going to be the bride of Christ, because the bride of Christ is going to be raptured before the wrath starts. So not before the tribulation, but before the wrath. Okay? And many people just totally, again, get that wrong. And so then what they do is they're saying, oh, the rapture is going to happen at the end. Oh, at the end of the tribulation. Okay? But make no mistake, it's not at the end of tribulation. It's the end of the wrath of God, what they're referring to. And that is not correct. Why? Because they did not get in their head that this time period of 7 years of tribulation doesn't even exist. Okay? It doesn't exist. It is 7 years of wrath of God. So that's, again, where they go wrong. And then they say, oh, the wrath of God, the rapture is at the end of the tribulation. Why? Because the Bible tells you. Because clearly the Bible tells you that the rapture is at the end of the tribulation. But people don't realize it, that this is really what we're talking about. It's the wrath of God. Okay? I hope that makes sense. And because I want to clarify that. I want to clarify that because you will come across people that will say, well, I came out of dispensationalism. But they followed wrong teachers again. Or they are still halfway in dispensationalism and they have not understood the wrong things that dispensationalism is teaching. Okay? This Rick Miles, yes, he is understanding that Zionism is part of this dispensationalism and he wants to just get rid of everything. There's another person, Chuck Baldwin. And I like him. I still listen to Chuck Baldwin. He just did another video, and it's on my Facebook group, Great Deception of the End Times. He just did a video recently. And he, again, is calling for all his brethren or pastor friends to join him to go against this dispensationalism and this Zionism, this Christian Zionism, okay? Christian Zionism. And I do listen to him because I can agree with him more. I have not seen anything at this point where I can see that he is going the wrong direction. Yes, he hammers Zionism, anti-Zionism quite a lot. And I still believe we have to be careful with that. I think we need to speak out about the wrong things when somebody is teaching a wrong doctrine about the state of Israel or about the Jews. And there's lots of wrong doctrine out there. I think we need to teach it, but we need to be careful. We need to be careful, okay? Simply because I do not want something like the Holocaust happen again. Not ever, okay? Not to any people group. That's why. And it has a tendency to go against a people group severely that may not have anything to do with it. The Jews as a whole, I don't think they know what's going on with Zionism. They have no interest about Zionism. It is the leading people that even mislead their own people, okay? The Jews are not any different. They have a lot of false teachers that, matter of fact, especially the Jews, because Satan has an interest in misleading the Jews so they wouldn't accept Messiah. Satan is working overtime on the Jews as well, not just the Christians. And so he has only one interest, is to mislead them. We see that when you read Revelation 12, even though it's really kind of symbolic, you can see that Satan does persecute the woman that brought forth the Messiah. Okay, why? Because he does not want them to accept Messiah. And that has been going on for 2,000 years. I think that the Jews have been the most persecuted people. Why? Because not just because of God rejecting them, because of what they have done, rejecting Messiah, but because Satan is working overtime to prevent them to accept Messiah as well. Okay? So I am not pushing this, anti-Zionist kind of card. And a lot of people do, okay, like this Rick Wiles, and Chuck Baldwin does it too, but he doesn't do it to the extent. So, anyways, be careful about these false doctrines. Just because somebody says, well, I am coming out of dispensationalism or comes down on dispensationalism, does not mean they are not teaching false doctrine. You always have to go and study it yourself. Don't be fooled by anybody. Don't be fooled. Okay? The rapture is not happening at the end of the wrath of God. And the wrath of God is, if you watch my videos, my last video about the, what are they called? The two witnesses. I have shown that these two witnesses will be on the scene during the wrath of God. And most likely they will be on this, well, it says they're on the scene for 3.5 years. And I believe they will be on this earth during the wrath of God. We are gone during the wrath of God. Okay? We are gone during the wrath of God. We're going to be raptured. But somebody is going to be there that is going to witness. Okay? And those are the two witnesses. I don't care if they're two groups or whatever they are, but there's going to be two witnesses that are going to, in sackcloth, because they are mourning, because they have missed the bridegroom. They have missed the bridegroom, and they will never be part of the bride, and so that's why they are mourning. Okay, and they're telling people that Jesus is returning, and he will destroy them. Basically, what's going to happen? That's what they're preaching. So then that's a time period of 3.5 years, right? Where the rapture, the saints, the church is gone. Okay? And then at the end, the angels will gather the elect. And the elect are not the church. The elect are the believers. These witnesses, or the 144,000 that were sealed in Revelation 7, that's who they're going to collect. Okay? They're not collecting the saints. That's not what you hear when you hear about the rapture. The rapture is you're going to be snatched away. Okay? Not gathered. Okay? It's not a gathering. It's a snatching away. It's like being beamed up. Okay? 1 minute you here, 1 minute you are in heaven. That's what it is. Gathering is different. Why? Because they gather them because they have a human body. The church, the people of the church, right? The members of the church, they don't have a human body anymore. So their body is a transformed body, and it can go into heaven, I think, automatically. Just like, Jesus could go through doors. He could be here 1 minute and there someplace else one minute. Because we have a very transformed body. So we are not being gathered. We are just being snatched out or pulled out. Okay, like we're beamed out. But the people that are still left over after the wrath of God, the elect, they're going to be gathered because they have a human body. Okay, so there's different speech is being used. Different words are being used to describe the two events. But see, a lot of people, they say we're out of dispensationalism. They throw away all this stuff with, the tribulation and the rapture. And then they say, well, the rapture is going to be way at the end. Way at the end. Way at the end. What? After the wrath of God? Most people don't even know about the wrath of God. They just totally blank out the wrath of God. Why? Because they don't read the Bible. If you read Revelation, there's 2 accounts of the wrath of God. 2 accounts. And then, like I said, the Old Testament prophets, they have talked about the wrath of God so many times. And it just totally overlaps with what Revelation is saying. You know, John is using sometimes the same words to describe the wrath of God in Revelation as the Old Testament prophets. I have noticed that. Okay? The same words. And so we know about the wrath of God, and people just ignore it. Why? Because we've been indoctrinated through dispensationalism with this tribulation thinking. We only think about tribulation. That's what we're focused on. We are just so ingrained, it seems, on this idea of tribulation. Like, that is really the worst thing, is the tribulation. Okay? I mean, yeah, it's bad. It's bad if you think about the torture of the people. But the wrath of God for the unbelievers are worse. I mean, that is total destruction. I just did a video prior to this one talking about the wrath of God and the possibility that the wrath of God could start this year, that the rapture could actually happen this year. Okay? This is very serious, people. And then they're arguing over this peace plan, Trump's peace plan. Who cares? Okay? Who cares? If the wrath of God is starting soon, if the rapture is going to happen soon, who cares? What's going to happen when the rapture is after the rapture happened? You need to be worried about having the Holy Spirit and being ready. Okay, having the oil in the lamp. It is not going to be very funny or very comfortable during the wrath of God. You don't have to worry about having your head being cut off. You have to be worried about being burned to death, being hit by meteors, poisoned by bad water. You don't have to be worried about those kinds of things. Earthquakes, tsunamis. You don't have to worry about these things, okay? Watch my videos prior to this one, or go to this channel called, I think it's called 7X. I mean, if you put in 7X, you probably get to it. 7X. I'll see if you find that. No, not true 7X, but 7X. Let me go back. My computer is so messed up today. It's so slow. I can't find it. Gil Broussard. Gil Broussard and 7X. There it is. It's called Planet 7X. That's the name of the website. And you should be going there, people. And you should be getting informed about this Planet X coming, or Nibiru. You need to be informed, because that is important. That is, when you are a watchman, you need to know about that. Okay? Stop watching this peace treaty, or maybe the building of the temple, or whatever crap they're talking about. That is all a distraction of Zionism and these dispensational Christians. That's all it is. Okay? It's false doctrine, and you shouldn't even be following it because it's not biblical. But I'm going to come to an end today. I will put these links on the bottom, so you will see them. Be aware of the wolves, okay, in sheep's clothing. Okay, one of them is this Rick Wiles. I know he has some good information. There's no doubt in my mind. Okay, but when he mixes in his false doctrine about the end times, that's when you want to, perk up your ears, and you need to look things up in the Bible. Don't believe him. I mean, this Gil Broussard, he is not very clear about the end times doctrine as well. He is still stuck in dispensationalism. Okay, so I know that, but yet his information is very good as well. So you just need to be on guard. All right. But in everything, let the Holy Spirit guide you.